Imagine this: someone who once hurt you deeply, leaving you with scars, confusion, and an overwhelming sense of betrayal, suddenly returns to your life years later. They act as though nothing ever happened, as though the past didn't exist. Have you ever experienced this? It's almost like watching a mirror reflect a version of yourself you've tried so hard to forget. But why do they come back? Is it because they've changed? Or perhaps, like ripples in a pond, life has a strange way of bringing the unresolved back to the surface? Why is it that some people return, seemingly drawn by something unspoken, when the wounds they left behind were never truly healed? We all know what it feels like to be left with pain, to carry the weight of unanswered questions, and to move on, only for the past to knock on our door again. It leaves us wondering, what should we do now? The answer doesn't lie in simply understanding their actions, it lies in understanding our own. How do we react when those who once caused us pain come back? What happens to our peace, our healing, when their return stirs up old emotions? This is not just about them, it's about us, about the attachments we hold, the emotions we've yet to let go of, and the power we have to decide how we respond. In this video, we'll dive into why people who've hurt us may return and what the profound teachings of Zen and Buddhism can offer us in such moments. These teachings are not about justifying their actions or trying to change them, they are about understanding our own hearts, finding the strength to heal, and learning to find peace in the face of life's inevitable cycles. We'll explore how Buddhist wisdom can guide us to not just respond with calmness, but to let go of what no longer serves us. After all, the true path to healing is not in holding onto past hurts, but in finding liberation from them. What should we do when they return? The answer, as we'll see, is not as simple as saying yes or no, but about mastering the art of non-attachment to the past and embracing the peace that comes from within. Let me tell you a story. In a small village nestled between quiet mountains, there was a man who had once loved deeply. His heart had been full of hope, tender and trusting, when he gave it to a woman who, like a warm sunrise, had brought light into his life. Her laughter was like music, and the promises she made were woven with the sweetness of dreams. For a while, everything felt perfect. Their connection was deep, filled with moments of shared joy and understanding. The man believed that nothing could shake their bond. But just as the dawn fades into day, she left him. No explanation, no farewell, only silence. The kind of silence that left a wound deeper than words ever could. It was a silence that spoke of abandonment, of questions left unanswered, and of a love turned cold. The man was left alone, with only the echoes of the love he once felt. Years passed, the seasons changed, but the man carried his wound. It wasn't just the pain of betrayal, it was the confusion. Why had she left? What had gone wrong? His heart was heavy with these questions, and the answers seemed as elusive as the mountain mist. He had loved her with all his heart, so why had she walked away without a word? As time passed, the man tried everything to heal. He meditated on the mountain, seeking peace in the rhythm of his breath and the stillness of the natural world. He studied the Dharma, looking for wisdom in the ancient texts. He tried to fill the void in his heart with the beauty of nature, the sound of the river flowing by, and the silence of the forest. Yet, no matter how much he tried, the pain lingered. It was a scar that refused to fade, a memory that would not leave. One evening, years later, as the sun began to set behind the mountains, she returned. She appeared at his door, as if the years between them had never existed. Her face was the same, soft, familiar, but her eyes had changed. They were tired now, weary with the burden of time and life's struggles. It was as though the years had taken their toll, and the light that once shone so brightly in her seemed dimmed. She stood before him, looking lost and uncertain. "Can we talk?" she asked, her voice trembling with a mix of hope and hesitation. The words hung in the air, and for a moment, the man felt a familiar pull in his chest, a flicker of the love that once burned so brightly. Yet, beneath that flicker, there was fear of reopening wounds that had never fully healed. Fear of trusting again, only to be hurt once more. The past and present collided in that moment, and the man stood at a crossroads in his heart. Should he listen to her? Should he allow her back into his life, to open the door to love again? Or should he push her away, protecting the peace he had worked so hard to cultivate? He had spent so many years rebuilding himself, finding solace in solitude, in the quiet of the mountains, in the teachings of the Buddha. He had found healing, or at least a sense of peace. Now, here she was, a reminder of a past he had tried so hard to move on from. This is where the teachings of Buddhism and Zen offer wisdom. Buddhism teaches us that attachment to suffering is the cause of all unrest. The mind clings to pain just as it clings to pleasure. It fears the impermanence of life, holding on to the past as if it could somehow make it permanent. But the truth, as the Buddha taught, is that all things are impermanent, including our pain and our attachments. The very clinging to our suffering our memories, our regrets, keeps us trapped in a cycle of misery. The Zen tradition takes this a step further, encouraging us to practice mindfulness and presence in every moment. Zen teaches us to see things as they are, not as we wish them to be. It asks us to let go of the need to control or resist life's natural flow, and to accept each moment with an open heart. In this story, the man's attachment to the past, his unresolved pain, was a barrier to his peace. By clinging to that old wound, he was unknowingly allowing it to shape his present and future. But like the reflection on water, those who hurt us do not return because they have transformed. They return because they are still trapped in their own illusions, their own karma. Just as the man had carried the wound of his past, so too had she carried her own burdens, unresolved, unhealed. Her return wasn't about reconciliation or redemption. It was simply the ripples of karma moving in circles. As they always do, the man's response, his reaction to her return, would determine whether he remained trapped in the cycle of pain or whether he could finally let go. In that moment, the man was faced with a choice: to cling to the past, to let his emotions dictate his actions, or to let go, to see the situation clearly without attachment to the outcome. Buddhism teaches that the only true path to freedom is through non-attachment, not just to the things we love, but to the things that hurt us. It is in letting go of the past that we can make space for peace and healing to enter our lives. As the man stood at that crossroads, the teachings of Zen and Buddhism would guide him to a powerful realization. Healing doesn't come from holding on, it comes from letting go. And it is only when we release our attachment to pain, to the past, and to expectations, that we can finally move forward, free from the weight of old wounds. In Buddhism, there is a concept known as karma, the fruition of past actions. This is a law of cause and effect, where every action, thought, and intention we put into the world creates ripples that will inevitably return to us. Karma is not a system of punishment or reward, but rather a natural law of balance. What we send out into the world, be it good or bad, creates conditions that will come back to us, often in ways we cannot predict. This is not a mystical force or a divine judgment, it's simply the unfolding of consequences. The Buddha taught that everything is interconnected, and the consequences of our actions are a part of this web of interdependence. Nothing truly disappears, not even the emotional pain caused by others or the grief we carry. Rather, everything returns in its own time, in its own form. When we experience suffering, it is not a random event but a part of this unfolding cycle. Likewise, when we hurt others, those actions also create ripples that may return in some way. This law of karma extends to our relationships and the unresolved emotions that may linger long after the hurt has occurred. It is why people who have caused us pain may reappear in our lives, perhaps years later. Perhaps without warning, they may seem unchanged, yet there is something familiar about their return. This isn't necessarily because they have transformed into better people or because they've had a change of heart. No, the truth is more complex. They return not because they've undergone a profound personal growth, but because their journey remains incomplete, because something from the past has not yet been resolved. Their return is part of the karmic cycle, where unfinished business seeks closure. In Buddhist thought, it is said that we are bound by samsara, the cycle of birth, death, and rebirth, until we reach enlightenment and break free from it. Each action, each interaction, is like a seed planted in the fertile ground of the mind. The seeds of our actions eventually grow and bear fruit, sometimes many years after they were first planted. This cycle doesn't just affect us, but it touches everyone we encounter. When someone returns into our lives, they are not necessarily doing so because they have found redemption or have changed. Often, they are retracing their own steps, trying to resolve something that has been left hanging, a karmic cycle that needs closure. This is where the danger lies. If we misunderstand their return, we risk seeing it as a sign of transformation, believing that they are seeking forgiveness, redemption, or reconciliation. We might think that by accepting them back, we are giving them the chance to make amends, or that we are offering them a path to redemption. But this is where Buddhist wisdom cautions us. If we allow ourselves to become emotionally entangled, if we return to the patterns of attachment that once caused us pain, we risk reopening wounds that have begun to heal. Their return, then, could inadvertently bring us back into the cycle of suffering, trapping us in the very patterns we had worked so hard to escape. In our story, the man understood this important lesson. He did not allow himself to be swept up by the illusion that her return meant she had changed, or that it was his responsibility to offer forgiveness or closure. Instead, he listened to her words, but he kept his heart grounded in the present, mindful of the lessons he had learned through years of meditation and study. He knew that true healing doesn't come from reopening old wounds. It comes from understanding the impermanence of all things, the pain, the love, the regrets, and knowing when to let go. The man realized that the cycle of karma is not something we can control. We can't stop the ripples from returning, nor can we always predict how they will manifest, but we can control how we respond. Buddhism teaches that the path to freedom lies not in clinging to the past, not in holding on to the people or emotions that hurt us, but in releasing our attachment to them. When we are no longer attached to the outcome, when we no longer see our pain as something we must fix or resolve through others, we are free. We can remain peaceful, even when life brings people or situations back into our lives that once caused us suffering. In understanding karma, the man saw his role clearly. He was not here to rescue the woman, nor was he to revisit the past and relive the pain. He was here to honor the present moment, to practice mindfulness, and to remain true to the peace he had cultivated within himself. His heart was open, but his mind was clear. He understood that both he and she were simply travelers in the vast cycle of karma, each of them seeking to complete their own journey. And just as he had learned to let go of his attachment to the past, so too could she learn to let go of hers. In the end, it is not the return of others that holds the key to our healing. It is our ability to understand the nature of karma, to see the impermanence of all things, and to cultivate the wisdom that allows us to move forward without attachment to what has gone before. Only then can we find true peace, unburdened by the past, and free to embrace the present moment with clarity and understanding. Now, let me share a personal story that might resonate with some of you. A few years ago, someone from my past returned to my life after having hurt me deeply. This person showed up unexpectedly, offering apologies and regret, their eyes filled with a sorrow that seemed to reflect years of personal struggles. At first, I was thrown off balance. I had spent years trying to bury the hurt, working through the pain and confusion of what they had done to me. The wounds felt as fresh as when they were first inflicted, but as time had passed, I had been working hard to cultivate peace within myself, through meditation, mindfulness, and understanding the Buddhist teachings. So when they appeared in my life again, the first instinct was to ask, why? Why did they come back now? Had they truly changed? Was I supposed to forgive and let them back into my life? It was only through reflection and applying what I had learned from the Dharma that the answer began to unfold. Their return wasn't about me. Not truly. It wasn't about seeking my forgiveness or fixing the past. It wasn't even about whether or not they had changed. It was about their own journey, unfinished, unresolved, still tied to the past in ways they hadn't worked through. Their return was a manifestation of their own karma, the natural consequences of their actions. And I realized, it wasn't for me to heal that for them. I could see it clearly now. Their return was more about their need to close a chapter in their own life. Something left undone in their hearts. But here's the most important realization I had. It wasn't about me letting them back into my life, but about me recognizing how far I had come in my own healing. Their return, in a way, was a mirror reflecting my own growth, or showing me where I still had room to grow. I was being asked to recognize how much peace I had cultivated, how far I had come from the person I was when I first encountered that pain. The act of letting go had become the real healing. I realized that I had already given myself the closure I needed. True closure isn't something someone else can offer us, it comes from within. It's not their apologies, their actions, or their explanations that heal us. It's our ability to let go, to move on, and to be free of the attachments that once held us captive. I didn't need their return to be the closure I sought. I already had the power to close that chapter myself. This was one of the most empowering lessons I have ever learned. Closure doesn't come from waiting for someone to right their wrongs or offer us their forgiveness. Closure comes when we are ready to let go of the past, of the hurt, and of the attachment to the idea that someone else can provide us with the peace we are looking for. It's a journey of self-realization, where we recognize that the power to heal and to move forward has always been within us. So, when someone from your past returns, whether they have hurt you or not, remember this: their return is not about you. It's about their unresolved karma, their unfinished business. What matters is how you respond. Are you still attached to the pain, or have you learned to release it? Can you recognize how much you've grown? How much peace you've found within yourself? That's the true closure. So, what should you do when they come back? The answer is simple. Do nothing that goes against your peace. When someone from your past returns after having hurt you, it can stir up emotions. It can bring with it warmth, confusion, or even pain. But the key is to stay grounded in your peace. If their return brings warmth, if their apology, their presence, or their change touches something inside you, let it warm you. But if it brings pain, if the encounter reopens wounds that you've worked so hard to heal, then let it pass. Don't let their return become the storm that disturbs your inner calm. One of the biggest mistakes we can make in these situations is to believe that their return means the past can be rewritten. It's tempting to think that, Now that they've returned, you can fix things, change the outcome, or relive the good moments. But that's a trap. The past is not something we can change. What has been done is done, and it cannot be undone. The person who has returned is not the same person they once were. But neither are you. Both of you have changed, and the story between you two has already been written. In the story of the man and the woman, he didn't chase after her when she returned, nor did he slam the door on her. He didn't push her away in anger, but neither did he invite her back in with open arms. Instead, he simply listened. He understood that her return was not about him, it was about her need for closure. She had come back because she was still caught in her own cycles, unfinished business, unresolved karma. But he didn't let that disrupt his peace. He listened, understood, and let go. When she left again, it wasn't the man who had been abandoned, it was she who had lost something she could never reclaim. By choosing peace over attachment, he preserved what he had worked so hard to build within himself. He didn't let her return replant the seeds of pain that had already been uprooted. And in doing so, he freed himself from the past once again. The key to freedom in situations like this is detachment, not indifference, but clarity. Detachment, in the Buddhist sense, is not about closing ourselves off or becoming emotionally cold. It's about observing the situation without getting swept away by it. It's about recognizing what is happening without becoming attached to the outcome, without being dragged back into the emotions of the past. Zen teachings tell us that true peace comes when we are no longer affected by the past or by the return of those who have hurt us. Imagine the moon reflecting in the water. It doesn't rejoice when the tide returns, nor does it mourn when it leaves. It simply observes. It remains unaffected, knowing that everything flows in its own time. Similarly, when someone from our past returns, we should not be swayed by their presence. Whether they bring joy or sorrow, we should simply observe, knowing that everything in life, every person, every moment, every situation, comes and goes according to its own rhythm. People who return to us after hurting us are often caught in their own cycles, seeking closure, seeking redemption, or seeking understanding. But we must not allow their return to disturb our peace. It is not our responsibility to fix their unfinished business. Our only responsibility is to ourselves, to stay grounded, to remain in the peace we have worked so hard to cultivate. Imagine a mountain standing tall against the wind. The wind blows fiercely, howling through the air, but no matter how strong it is, the mountain does not move. The wind may batter against it, but the mountain does not chase after the wind, nor does it mourn when the wind is gone. It simply stands there, rooted in its own being, unwavering and unshaken. This is how we must be when people return after causing us pain. Like the mountain, we must remain rooted in our own peace. We can acknowledge their presence, listen to their words, and offer understanding if it feels right. But we do not move from our place of peace. We do not allow their return to shake us, to pull us back into the past, or to disturb the serenity we've worked to build within ourselves. True freedom comes when we no longer need the return of others to heal us. We no longer wait for others to provide the closure we seek. We love without losing ourselves. We remember without suffering. The pain may still be there, but we are no longer tethered to it. We no longer need their actions or their words to complete our healing. We can stand firm, like the mountain, knowing that our peace comes from within, and nothing outside of ourselves can shake it. So, when they return, let it be a reminder not of the past, but of how far you have come. Let it be a test of your ability to stay rooted in your own peace, to respond from a place of clarity, not reaction. And in doing so, you will find true freedom, freedom from the past, freedom from attachment, and freedom from the need for anything outside of yourself to heal you. So, when they return, don't ask, why have they come back? Instead, ask yourself, do I still need this lesson? Because the truth is, their return is not about them, it's about you. It's about where you stand now, how much you've grown, and whether you still need to learn from this experience or if you are ready to let it pass. Like a breeze moving through the trees. If their presence brings you warmth, allow it, but without attachment. If it stirs up old wounds, recognize it as a sign that there is still healing to be done. And if it disrupts your peace, then let it go, not with anger, not with bitterness, but with understanding. Like the mountain standing against the wind, remain steady, like the moon reflecting on water. Observe without being disturbed. The past does not need to be rewritten, nor does it need to be relived. Some people return not because they've changed, but because their karma has led them back to a path they once left behind. But that does not mean you must walk it with them again. If the answer to your question is no, if you no longer need this lesson, then smile gently, let the wind pass, and remain in your peace. Because true healing does not come from their return, it comes from your ability to remain free. Thank you for watching. If this message resonated with you, let me know in the comments. Have you ever had someone from your past return? And how did you respond? Also, don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more insights on mindfulness, healing, and spiritual growth. I'll see you in the next video. Stay at peace.